and welcome to the real reality of it all. This is episode 8, and I'm Mike. In the last episode, we were taking a look at some specific points that we had mentioned all through the previous episodes, and we were going to confirm what we've discussed by showing where it's mentioned in the Creator's Guidebook. And now I'd like to go over 2 more points, and that'll be the end of our foundational teaching series. But the points I want to go over is, the first one is, he knows who you are. And we can look at all the different places he says how he knows you. And then after that, we'll go over why you were born. It's so incredible and majestic that what the Creator is and what he can do and what he's done. And it's really scary because he's incredibly powerful. He can destroy, but he also is love. He is love. And so there's a fear, but then there's a love, and he knows who you are. Like, you're here, you are trying to make this decision. You're processing all this stuff we're going over through your head. And we're saying that you can have a relationship with him, and that's what he wants, is a clear, specific relationship. He knows who you are. And let's look at just a couple examples where that's described. And then we'll go on to why you were born, and that'll be the end of it. But let's go to Psalms for this. Okay. It says here, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely." He knows who you are. And remember how we said that it's hard for us to discern or to comprehend that he's always existed. It's hard for us to comprehend that he knows the end from the beginning, which is referred to here. It's also hard for us to comprehend that out of all the billions of people, he knows this about you. He knows your thoughts. He knows when you sit, when you rise. He knows what you're doing. He knows what you're going to say before you do it. So he knows your heart. He knows you. And he wants you to have a heart that is open to him and to his plan and what's going on. So he knows who you are. You know, we're talking about, I'm going to go to one thing real quick here. This fits right here. This whole process is a couple things. It's a changing of the heart. It's changing from a heart of selfishness, what the Bible would refer to as a heart of stone. It's a changing of the heart to a heart of love and putting others first. And it's a renewing of the mind, because you have never thought like this before. And it's you got to change your thinking. When I said that you process everything through that foundation that we listed, that's a renewing of the mind, a changing of your thinking. And that's what took me a year to get my head wrapped around. It's because it was such a renewing of the thinking, of the mind. And it says here in Romans, it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Powerful, huh? He knows you. He wants you to renew your mind. Let's go to Jeremiah. It says here, when I get to it, all right. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Are you want to so before he formed you in the womb, he knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Remember how we say he knows the end from the beginning? Did he know you were going to be his and come to this reality? Or in Matthew, Jesus refers to separating the weeds from the good plants and throwing the weeds in the fire to be burned up. Are you a good plant or are you a weed? And did he know this before you were born? Nick, before he was in the womb, the Creator knew that Nick was going to come to this and be one of his and be part of his plan. But Nick's life didn't lead that way until, and this is where he works with us, events happen. Events he knew before they were in the womb that were going to happen. Events happened and brought Nick to this understanding. And where does that fit in your life? What's the event? Did you make it to this podcast? You know, maybe in the future other things are going to happen and for you to remember this podcast and bring you back to it. Maybe some other way that you're going to get to realize this reality. And maybe some of you none at all, and you're the weed that gets burned up. But he knows who you are, and he knows what you're set apart for, what's going to happen with you. Out of billions and billions of people, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And there's billions and billions of people. He knows you intimately. So that's another thing in your thinking. Don't be overwhelmed and overthink it and be like, there's billions of people. I'm nothing. And he doesn't. How can all this relate to me? You got to, remember how I said, just take what's given to us and put it in our process of building this understanding. That's one of another things to plug in there. That he personally, specifically knows you, knows who you are, and he's capable to have that ability to do that and spend all the time with you. That's one thing we can't comprehend as humans, but he can do that. Just like he existed forever, and he knows the end from the beginning. He knows each of you personally. And what happens when he sees evil or you're an evil person? What did it say in Genesis? It said he was grieved that he saw people didn't acknowledge the Lord, didn't acknowledge that they were always doing evil. You know? And what is evil? Through this creation, he set in place the way things work, the way it connects. And evil is all the things that go against what he created and what he set in motion. So he set good things in motion and a harmony. And when you're in harmony with the things he set in motion, it works. When you go against it, that's evil. Okay? So, simple example. He created man and woman, and they're supposed to be husband and wife. And when you get married, or when you meet your woman, that there's a connection. You become one flesh. It's a connection he put in place. That's an incredible connection. What evil is and this is what Satan is out there and wants to promote, but he wants to do everything against what God set in motion. So God set in motion husband and wife coming together, becoming one flesh, and having the family structure and the children and and then there's the firstborn, and he set that whole structure in place. That's how his realm is structured, and he used that. What goes against that? Divorce, but also gay and lesbian. Okay? I'm not saying that those people are horrible people. What I'm saying is they're deceived, and that's evil because they're going against what God ordained. They say, no, we're going to marry man to man or woman to woman, not man and woman like he set in place. And what happens when you do that, you're never happy. You always got a chip on your shoulder. You know you're doing something wrong. And then you have to force yourself and sear your conscience so much to even live with that and to just change your thinking so much to try to justify that. And you're always fighting against it. That's why they want to always put it in your face or whatever. Okay? I'm not judging them or saying that they're horrible people. What I'm saying is this is how it works. And that's what evil is, anything that goes against what he set in place. And it doesn't work. And they can profound and professedly say that it works, but they're just lying to themselves, and they always have to keep pushing that lie because they know they're going against something that's already ordained and set in place. So he knows you. And let's go to Matthew. It says here, I'm just going to start right here, and we'll get to the point. Basically, there's evil out there that wants you to, that's going to, speak bad against you, go against you, try to kill you, whatever. So it says, do not be afraid of them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside of your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So what he's saying, he knows you, and he knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows you so well. He knows how many hairs are on your head. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before the Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. So he knows you. He knows your heart. He wants you to have the courage to stand up for yourself, stand up for what you're learning now. Because, boy, especially in today's day and age, knowing this and trying to talk to someone about this, it's like, wow. They want to kill you. Wow, So he's saying, don't be afraid. Stand up for it when you know it, Stand up for it. One last one. Let's go to Psalms to show that he knows you. We'll go to Psalms 103. Okay. As a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him. For he knows how we are formed. He remembers that we are dust. The life of mortals is like grass. They flourish like a flower of the field. The wind blows over and is gone, but its place remembers it no more. But from everlasting to everlasting, the Lord's love is with those who fear him, and his righteousness with their children's children. With those who keep his covenant, remember to obey his precepts. So the Lord has established his throne in heaven, and his kingdom rules over all. So that sums it up. He knows who you are, and he wants you to know this, understand it, change your heart, renew your mind. Okay, so last segment, of this episode, we just went over like all these different things, kind of showing that answering the questions of could evolution have happened, then did he write this word? We looked at all that. We looked at, does he protect his word? And we looked at the incredible creation. And then the last thing we just looked at is he knows who you are. So the last segment, let's just take a look at, why were you born? Why all this? Why this creation? Why this human condition? Why evil? Why living as a human and then needing to come to this understanding? Why all that? Why were you born? So in order to look at that, we need to kind of go back a little bit in what we think in linear time, but let's go back to before the creation of us. And just like I said, you get glimpses of stuff and they're like gold nuggets, man. Like when you come across it, it really helps in understanding things, and that'll definitely be shown here. But let's go back to a time where, we don't understand a lot about God's realm, his heavenly realm, whatever dimension this all happens in, and it's way huger and bigger and involved than you might think. I mean, there's lots and lots of beings in his realm. I mean, I'm not going to turn to it, but in Revelation, it talks about 100 million angels. We have heavenly hosts. In Genesis, it talks about sons of man, and they were great. And, so there's a lot of things happening, but there's obviously angels. We've heard about angels. There's a lot of angels mentioned in the Bible. So he creates angels. Okay? So let's talk about Satan. Let's go back to, his name was Lucifer, which meant light bringer, and he was created the most perfect angel. And let's read about him, and that sets the basis for pretty much why we were born and the purpose for this. So here's Lucifer, or Satan, created, and this section, this is in Ezekiel, and it's going to refer to his creation or how he's created. So you were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. So here he's created like an incredible angel, right? You were in Eden, the garden of God. So remember we talked about the deception of Satan to deceive Adam and Eve to eat from the tree they were told not to eat of, which started this whole thing. All right, we'll get back to that. But here it says, you were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you: carnelian, chrysolite, and emerald, topaz, onyx, and jasper, lupus, lazuli, turquoise, and beryl. So these were precious stones that were adorned on him. Your settings and mountings were made of gold. So remember we talked about where did the value of gold come from in jewels? Well, here, this is before us. Here's an angel that has all this adorned on him. On the day you were created, they were prepared. So we see that Lucifer was created as an angel that was beautiful, wise, had all, beauty and adornment and everything. You were anointed as a guardian cherub, for so I ordained you. You were on the holy mount of God. You walked among the fiery stones. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created till wickedness was found in you. So here we see a perfect, beautiful angel being created, probably the highest and best angel of all. And you were, he was in God's realm, walks amongst God and everything, till wickedness was found in you. So he turned and had a change of heart, change of desire. Through your widespread trade, you were filled with violence, and you sinned. So I drove you in disgrace from the mount of God, and I expelled you, guardian cherub, from among the fiery stones. Your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. So I threw you to the earth. I made a spectacle of you before kings. So here we have the most beautiful creation of an angel, wisdom, beauty. What else did he say he was? The seal of perfection, full of wisdom. And then you had the beauty. Then what happened? Wickedness was found in him. And he was filled with violence and sinned, and his heart became proud on account of beauty, and it was corrupted because of his splendor. It was just too much for him, and he went bad. Okay? Let's look at another example of this description. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, so this is describing how he changed. He said, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. So here he was created beautiful and wise, and then he wanted to be God. He wanted to be higher than God. He wanted it all. He wanted it all. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to the realm of the dead, to the depths of the pit. So that just shows a little more of the corruption that got into him and how he was cast out of settings. Here it says, your settings and mountings were made of gold. On the day you were created, they were prepared. So you were anointed as a guardian cherub, for so I ordained you. You were on the holy mount of God. You walked among the fiery stones. So you see, he got corrupted and then got cast out of heaven. All right. Now, here we have a few references. Here Christ says, where are we? Luke 10:18. It says here, he replied, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. So here Christ says he saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. And then we can read about that battle. It says here, in Revelation, it says, then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. All right, so if you go back to it says its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. So basically what happened was, here you had a beautiful angel being created, and then corruption came upon him, and then he wanted to be God, and his whole attitude was to be God and to destroy anything that God set in place. And he deceived a third of the angels, and that's what we have today as demons, but he did, and they were cast out of heaven. Okay? So, then God creates all this creation and creates man, and then man gets deceived by Satan. So, why were you born? So, let's throw this out there. How does God create a spirit being to be in his kingdom with him forever? Somehow he came upon the plan that here he created an angel perfect, and the angel got corrupted and was and wanted to be God. And so I guess one could say that didn't work. And how does God create a spiritual being to be in his kingdom and in his realm that doesn't get corrupted like Satan got corrupted? How does one get created to be perfect like Satan was and not want to be God, not change his heart through ego and selfishness? How would it happen that, he could create a being that would be totally in tune with him and not get corrupted? And that's pretty much ultimately why we were born and why we were created. So let's walk this through. So here you had the fall of Satan, and then he creates man. And he didn't create us equal or even or whatever. He created us with a human nature, and that nature is selfish and prideful. And so he created us with that nature, and you saw it happened right away with Adam and Eve. Here they were created innocent. And then God said, don't eat from this tree. Then Satan came along and said, and you can read this in Genesis, but Satan came along and said, oh, you're not going to surely die. It's not going to hurt you at all to eat from this tree. So they're like, okay, let's eat from the tree. Right away, that's the human nature that kicked in, right? They got deceived. They had their ego and their pride and their selfishness. They thought about themselves. And what happened? They ate from the tree of good and evil, and then they became knowledgeable about good and evil. So here Satan got cast to the earth, and he brought the evil. Then God created us with a human nature. And those things, while you were born, those things must be overcome. You weren't born neutral and then have to deal with the things about choosing where you want to be in his plan and all that. You were created with a human nature that's selfish and prideful that has to be overcome. So you were created to have to overcome that. Then you also have to overcome Satan's influence. And Satan's influence thrives on your human nature. All he has to do is give a little bit of a crack, a little suggestion, good point, to where your human nature just takes over. And that's what he did to Adam and Eve. He's like, no, it's okay. You're not going to surely die. That little bit was just enough to have them go against what God told them not to do, and sure enough, they did it. And that's what you battle in this life. So, why were you born? Number one is, he wants to make a being that's going to live for eternity in his kingdom that can be trusted, that is not going to do what Satan did. And this whole world is driven by Satan's influence to take you away from anything that God's created. Anything we talked about, the harmony of how living in harmony with what he ordained, the structure he put in place, being married, working, putting others first instead of being selfish, giving and sharing, loving. Satan is opposite of all that and everything. Hating, stealing, selfishness, destroy the marriage foundation, abortion, destroy children. God says, go forth and multiply. And while I'm mentioning that, this is the way he set it up for him to create beings that are going to be with him for eternity. And that decision, that proving of it, is now in this life. Coming to this knowledge is how you start to turn your heart and open your mind to why you were born. And that's the only way for this type of dynamic being that we are to live for eternity. It says in Hebrews that we're meant to be greater than angels. So we say there's all these things in heaven. Well, here he made a perfect angel that became evil, and we're higher than angels. So we're created to be higher than angels in his kingdom live forever in love and not fall and become evil and wicked and want to be God and go what happened with the fall of Satan, right? So the only way he creates those, he's not creating them out of thin air. The only way he creates people to have a chance to have that eternal life and be with him is through the human birth. So abortion goes against everything that God set in place because he wants us to multiply. He wants as many as possible to have that chance. And when you abort a baby, you're taking that creation that happened in the womb, you're taking that away from having that chance in his kingdom. Now, I'm sure the aborted babies are all going to be resurrected and have a chance further down the road, which we'll go into when we do an overview of the Bible the next time we talk. But why were you born? You were born to be a creation that has proven and trained yourself. You built a character to overcome the influences of Satan, to show you have a heart that's not evil, and to overcome your human nature. So it's a character building process. Many of the books of the New Testament talk about having problems and trials in this life. And it talks about that being a refinement, a process, where like you refine gold to be pure. It's a process to refine us to be pure. So we suffer in this life. It clearly says we suffer because Christ suffered. So, and that's another thing about religions that they kind of just, Christian religions kind of go sideways on, is that they kind of give you this idea that if you accept Christ and follow Christ, that you're just going to live this life of blessings and all this stuff. And that's not the way it works. This is a time of refinement and purification. It's a time of suffering. And that's proven because all the disciples that walked with Christ and Paul, who did a tremendous teaching for Christ, you would think they'd be wealthy and sitting in mansions and having all the gold. That didn't happen to any of them. In fact, they were hunted down and they all were martyred and killed and tortured. And that's because this was the refinement process. This was the proving process. This was beings being created temporarily in this human body that prove their worth and will then rule and reign with Christ forever and be in his kingdom. And this whole book tells you all about all this stuff. That's why you got to read it. And you got to read it personal and apply it to you. But you were born to be a proven, pure creation to exist in his realm, in his dimension, in his heaven forever. That just doesn't automatically happen. There's a lot of people that aren't going to be part of that. Remember I talked about the section where it says separating the good plants from the weeds. He's going to burn the weeds up. The good plants are going to be his. That's why you were born. That's what this is all about. And Satan has lied to you and deceived you all through this life. He told you there is no God, that there's evolution is why you're created, taking away the glory of this creation from your creator. He has deceived you to think that you need to be selfish and get for yourself everything at this time. And it's folly, because in the end you die. And then that's it, right? And you're going to face judgment. And he's going to ask you straight to straight, face to face. Why didn't you see this? I proved it through the creation. I proved it through the guidebook I gave you. And you said no. It's like you had it all in front of you. Remember we read what Paul said, that it's so obvious that God exists because of the creation that they have no excuse. What's your excuse going to be? Oh, they told me there was evolution. What's your excuse going to be? That you didn't put others first and show love and care and put aside all the things of this life to live for something bigger, better, to live for his kingdom and to be with him. That's why you were born. Let's take a minute, just the last minute here. Let's flip this around. Let's flip it around, okay? Let's say there is no creator. Let's say that evolution is plausible. Let's say that we have this. So let's say this is somehow just this. Like, it says all these things. But let's not say who it's from. Let's not say that there is a creator. Let's just flip it up. Let's just flip this all around. Okay? We just happen to be living on this planet, and we just happen to have this. What would the harm be if you read this and you got the whole thing? You understood like how it all tied together, that you should be a good person, that you should be loving, that you should be giving and giving and giving, and that you should put others first, and you should be selfless, and you should have no ego or no pride, that you should be humble, but you should be someone that cares about others more than yourself. You don't even think about yourself, right? How bad is that? Because that's what this says, right? To live a life of honesty, a life of morals. You already have ingrained in you, you know what's right from wrong. So going around and being, with all the sex and the porn and all the destructive, the greed and that sexual perversion, that destroys the sanctity of what sex is supposed to be between a husband and a wife, and the beautiful connection. All that, what do you lose? What do you lose if you just had this and you lived your life according to this? Do you miss out on being evil? Do you miss out on wickedness? Do you miss out on perversion? Do you miss out? Is that because there's so many people that be like, oh, I can't believe this. I can't buy into this. Why? What's wrong with being good? Just on itself, what's wrong with being good? Are you missing out on evil because this is a lie? Or would you rather, even if this was all there was evolution and that this just existed and you read it and then you just okay, I'm going to be a good person. Did you lose out on something?
Life's indulgences, and Solomon covered that it was all for nothing.
Right. Yeah. And then
he had all the indulgences. He tried his hand at everything.
So is it better to you as a person? Is it better to be wicked and die? Or is it better to know the reality, which is there is a creator? There is a plan and a purpose. And you were born to be part of that plan and purpose, but you got to be responsible for yourself. You have to choose. If you don't, not doing anything is a choice, right? You were created to look at the creation and realize, wow, this is incredible and perfect. There has to be a creator. Then you were created to then read what he wants you to know, allow his spirit to come in you and open your minds even more to this, and then change your heart to a heart of love and putting others first. And then renew your mind into this, because everything out there is wickedness and Satan's out there trying. Your human nature is against you. Satan's against you. You were created to overcome it. You were created to prove yourself. All right? They have a thing with koi. They heard of the fish koi. They're those beautiful, colorful fish, goldfish, but they're big and they're all colorful. They're Japanese or whatever. But they call it culling. 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 They have a culling process because these all get kind of born with all their colors and stuff, but they go through and they pick out the best, beautiful ones with no defects, no problems with the fins, no ugly colors. Just they pick out the best, beautiful ones and they put those in a pond, and then they continue to breed or whatever, or they sell those. But the other ones that don't pass the culling process are turned into fish food. And they're made into fish food and they get fed to the other ones. This is a culling process in this life. And believe it or not, it is. And that's why you were born, to be part of his family for eternal life. And this describes it all. So call me a liar, call it all bullshit, call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I don't matter. What I think doesn't matter. This is the real reality. And I've never given you my opinion. I've given you straight stuff right from here. And this is the real reality of it all, is that you were born to be in his family, but you have to pass the culling process. You have to renew your mind. You have to change your heart. And that's done through a personal, responsible response that isn't through a religion. They can help, but you got to take the responsibility. You have to have the initiative. You can read this. We're giving you the kit. Ask for it. We're giving you the kit. We want to give out millions. We want you to be prepared. I want you to be an adventurer in Christ, because that's an adventure that starts right here, right now in this life. Here's the kit that helps you. Then you got to read this and take your notes. But first read the book, 7 Reasons You Can Trust the Bible, because it helps you solidify. Even though we solidified it a lot in things we just discussed, it helps you solidify that you know this. You know there's a creator, and you know this. So that's why you were born. So do you want to be a part of it, or you just want to go on with the illusions that that distract you from dealing with reality? The fantasy of this life that distracts you from reality. You can deal in reality, which is this, and apply it to the things of this life and get through it just fine. And like we said in the very first episode, knowing this makes you more confident, gives you more peace, contentment, and you understand it. You get it, because this all ties together. It doesn't conflict. So anyway, that is the end of the teaching episodes, setting the foundation. This is the last of it. Next, we're going to start doing discussions. And so the next time you see us, we're going to start a discussion. Nick's going to join me, and he'll be sitting next to me, and we're going to discuss topics. And the first topic we're going to discuss is we're going to do an overview of the Bible. We're going to do an overview of the Creator's Guidebook, and just kind of do a quick walkthrough of what you run into, how the story flows, and what's going on. We're just going to kind of do an overview. Like I said, you have to read it. We're not reading it for you. You have to go on this adventure, and the adventure starts in Matthew. First, ask for, you don't have to get this kit. You can get a Life Application Study Bible, because the commentary really helps. But get this kit, or get yourself a NIV, Life Application Study Bible. 7 Reasons Why You Can Trust the Bible by Erwin Lutzer is, like I said, a really fantastic, mind-blowing read. So I recommend that. And then get a journal to just write down the great things that you come across so that you can refer back to them again. And with that, I'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.